Shirley here with Serious Status Moon, and the topic for today is quite an intense one. Um, basically, all triggers apply, particularly around children. Basically, before I was ritually abused, after basically proving MK Ultra in academia, okay, with both my thesis proposal, my essay, um, with declassified things in the CIA that were absolutely just on Google search. I wasn't aiming to look at the harm that was caused. I was just looking at the body-mind question through philosophy of science in the medicine and looking at ESP. That's where my point of view was. I did, to be quite honest, I did not know what MK Ultra was, um, but the scientific background was suffice. And And then certain things happened to me. I would feel dryness in my eyes as a researcher, okay? Feel dryness in my eyes. And at the time, anything that I would experience physically, I would immediately try to look for what is kind of the holistic meaning. Okay, so let's say, I don't know, somebody has problems or issues with stagnation in their lives, then that could create fungi, types of fungi. Somebody could have issues of yes, sexuality in their lives that could contribute to being susceptible in the immune system, and so on and so forth. And what would happen is, I can't believe the people that I see doing that. Um, but what would happen is that I would get psychically attacked. I did not know what it is because I came from academia, and it came from academia, and it came from the places where I would go to therapy. I did not connect MKUltra to that whatsoever. Not only that, I was like, hey, is that psychosis? Is that this psychosis thing they talk about? Um, Only to find out that the solution for psychosis is to believe the patient. I didn't know that because a lot of doctors didn't know that either. Um, but then I would look at it from another perspective, and it would only be this year that I was taught, because it's not something that there was all my life, and there was a sign with I would wake up with dry eyes, and this is a sign of somebody purposefully or intentionally, and then it can be a person that's taking drugs, but they set a focus and intention on causing harm to someone's inner child. And this is something that I understand today is a part of a ritual abuse. And today I woke up again with dry eyes, so I learned to take that out, and there is resistance, because it's a ritual that they want to do to coerce the child. And I noticed the picture of me, the child. And what happened is that somebody was masturbating. It was I will and without okay. This is where those things would take place, and the person in academia that was MK Ultra himself, and I was a TA of, they were also participating in that, as it seems from when you try to kind of like channel what is going on, um, and also someone that I considered my best friend. And at first I was like, okay, I saw the first, I was seeing the person who was considered my best friend. I didn't know anything. I just felt dryness in my eyes. And I'm like, you're cursing an inner child. But I know for sure that when it comes to me as a person, if you want to be a father, your child would have significations that are close to me, which means you need to deal with your inner child so that you can be a father. Common thing I see with many people, very likely if I would, want to be parent, then the things that I'm dealing with, in fact, to be very honest, um, when I was speaking about 207, a lot of the times when I would meet these people that went through ritual abuse and were unfortunately was still there and perpetuating the abuse, I would say, I need to resolve that. I need to resolve that because it's something that, to be a parent, I would need to resolve that. Um, like it was very obvious to me that if I don't know how to either work with these people or what is going on with these people, I would meet that as a parent. It's just an intuition that I knew, or there are chances I would meet some of the archetype as a parent, and and of course because they went through ritual satanic abuse and so did I. um, and and Um, and mind you, as a researcher, I wasn't looking to satanic ritual abuse. I was just looking into the science of medicine. It was right before COVID, and the science of extrasensory perception. So extrasensory perception in China was used for medicine as well. Children would diagnose kind of like a Röntgen site. And Russia, we did not have a lot of information, but we know as many people have this extrasensory perception. Actually, the person I considered my best friend told me that in Russia, because that was the missing part for me. He said everybody there has. The Soviet regime was terrible, and people developed ESP, kind of like what COVID was. Okay, um, and and in USA there were challenges because of the church. People were afraid to develop it, so I didn't even run into like the torture that they did to people. None of that. Um, I guess because I was just looking into the science of that it spiked it, because I can explain. It's like if MK Ultra is done on a person from afar, I can explain how, and that pertains to. Currently, I see that I can say in Israel, and some women have stillbirth, maybe related to that, is that they would do rituals on children and infants from afar. So let's say the mother is not in a, or the parents are not in a place where they're like in a cult or a coven, maybe connected with Madeleine. But with Madeleine, she was actually taken from the hotel and was murdered. The child is by these secret societies. The child is considered innocence, and so they have attack on light. So they use the attack on the light of the child as an offering to their weird gods. But also, in a funny way, they want to steal the creative energy of the child. Okay? And, um, yeah. And so, when I first woke up I was like, wait, for this person that seemed like the person was my best friend, I said, we had Ketu Moon, and he needed to connect it to his inner child. At that time, I was um, beginning to connect to my inner child. So, in that situation, yes, the person needs to, um, before they can be parents. It's not before they can be parents. I mean, some people do have children and then they go through this, but um, it's kind of like so that they can enjoy being a parent. That's the important thing. So that being a parent would be a joyous experience for them, they need to connect with the inner child, but also they cannot reject stuff. They cannot be in a position where they reject stuff but they reject stuff about me and try to kill those parts or try to cause harm to those parts, or because of those parts are innocent. And so um, it gotten all to the way. And so when I got it, I was like, okay, I began to bless the person who curses me to connect with their inner child and to be happy in their inner child and curate the inner child. And then, of course, it got worse. And I said, well, if it's needed, then for them to have euthanasia, if it's something that they can't, that's too overwhelming or something like that. Because access to euthanasia is actually saving more lives than any of the suicide hotlines. Okay, suicide hotlines, like somebody is on the roof, you say, oh, you are loved and so on, you're cared for. Sometimes it saved life, sometimes it saved life for a moment. Then next day they will try again. Um, and then they would only think that they can receive that when they are on the verge of death or something like that. Um, but the access to basically the access to choice in that regard for many people is needed. Um, we understand that in Netherlands, but we don't. It's not enough access to that. But also, most countries just still like, don't do it. Permanent solution that the a person within that tunnel thinking is overwhelmed and is traumatic. So yes, it's a very big life risk that people can't openly talk about that, and that it's not accessible to them, to possibility to yes decide to end life, because this can open the gate to choose, to choice, and the choice was hurt. Okay, when child was abused, they did not have a sense of validation and they did not have choice, um, and both are needed in that regard. Um, so yes, I heard somebody was breathing, breathing, breathing. Then I saw a picture of me, the child, and they were masturbating on me, the child. And I said, okay, are you masturbating on me, the child? Um, and and then I said, I will go even farther with you because I speak for this person that does these courses. As I will go even farther with you. If you pleasure yourself around a picture of, I don't know, for my inner child, as long as you don't harm or curse my inner child, it's between you and you. I don't judge you. But it's not that they were, I'm sorry, pleasuring themselves around a picture of child. Um, because people that went through ritual abuse can find themselves, they might be even programmed to be aroused by children, because if they will be important people, or even important researchers, then they should be able to be extorted, and pedophilia is the best extortion, right? You give someone drugs, you give them child, they rape child on camera, they don't know that they're on camera, then 20, 30 years later, you have, when they're already important enough, then the extortion code shows these pictures. And this also pushes people to try to be in position where they can affect the decision, which means they would have to do way more crimes. And so, and my ex best friend, he was researcher into earth science. So actually, when he had the idea about earthquake, I was encouraging him, and I learned from my perspective, philosopher of science, that people did not want to touch earthquakes. And I'm like, I came from learning about the chaos theory and so on the theory, yes, not like the big mathematics, um, but um, but I understood that there was a lot of corruption, and he linked into forestation, which is another big corrupted. When I wanted to grow forest, I began to just do what they did in Sahara, which is half moons, or for people that have beavers, then to release beavers around the stream of a lake, and they will take care of the rest. Um, but uh, but the half moons can grow like this. They can grow if there are trees. They can grow trees without even planting. Um, but that I didn't get from my ex best friend. Um, and and I knew that he was going on trajectory where he would be a researcher. Then uh, then they would try to make him extortable. Okay, we already had that with a friend of ours that was a mathematician, and then he got immediately caught because and they exposed him quickly because he was very good mathematician. As terrible as it is, I tell it like it is. Okay, shouldn't he and his boyfriend should not have raped that boy to begin with. That's supposed to be a given. Why they exposed him on now and not later, and through the exposure we got to know about it, is because he actually had to give something for to the children. Now, when they do these rituals, they try to masturbate because they need to activate the sexual energy, and they masturbate on the child, and they try to curse the child, the inner child. Now, even if a person is adult, the abuse, and this is why, for people who learned about the narcissistic abuse, okay, this is kind of like a minor scale of that. Um, and narcissistic abuse goes by bringing the other person to the child state and then harming them there. A lot of therapists, unfortunately, that are related to MK Ultra are programmed to do that, particularly if it's childhood trauma. So, okay, and I'm saying that not as an accusatory. I want you to watch Alandra, um, the episodes with Alandra on Annika Lucas' podcast. It was episode 9, and he was supposed to be Epstein, okay? And he is satanic ritual abuse survivor. It's episode that really contributed a lot to what I do, to to try to bridge in the gap and to try to get more people that were supposed to be Epsteins out to be satanic ritual abuse survivors, um, and to open the door to exit that violence. Because if we want to resolve the topic and not play into the hand of extortion cults, that's the route. That's the route that I see as a researcher. That's the route that I see in my personal life. And so, of course, a very unpleasant feeling was people are having ritual to masturbate on a child and try to cause harm to that child using black magic that works on the sexual energy. Um, Not a pleasant experience, and again, it got to me by being a researcher on the topic of medicine and ESP. Not on the topic of MK Ultra, not on the topic of targeted individuals, not even on the topic of psychiatry per se. Um, my last my BA essay was around the use of psychiatry to create a national identity, the use of the myth of psychiatry, because back then it was a myth before it was a science, and I'm like, that's so interesting. That's not how we're told science develops. Um, um, and that would take me to my thesis that would be in the medical field. Um, and there was the use of the myth of psychiatry in India to create national identity in um, around the classes in Great Britain. So it was very funny. They got them to be jealous, and they do that to the world with Israel. They say Israel get the best medicine, get the best this, get the best that, and I wouldn't say that this is all a myth, but with the medical experiments going on people here, especially on children, okay, then people should be watching what they wish for. Like it's good, it's very right to wish for more medicine that is actually medicining, but not. But they would have to beat the MK Ultra that is also done here, and ook in Nederlands, and um, what is in Netherlands, we even had cases of children that were born and not registered in hospitals. So a lot of the births in Netherlands are opting to be home birth. Um, Not necessarily only because of that, but but for those places where babies were born in hospitals, there were cases where they were not registered. And so what happens is then somebody is, my psychologist actually told me that he was attracted to me, the child. Um, very, very sensitive topic because children are also going through the programming of, um, yes, it's very difficult to find the words to say that, but they want to use the children, okay, for the adults to be extortable, and and that can be something that is beyond difficult, and even when a psychologist asks a person, did the child has a sexual fantasy of being trafficked? I was like, no. I want sexuality to be good. Actually, if ever the fantasy was around having a sexual experience that is pleasurable for me, the child, and such a desire can only come out of a very particular lack that is usually not supposed to be even the topic when it comes to children. Um, Naturally, I did a lot of healing and recovery around that, but imagine that your psychologists are going against the healing of the inner child from sexual abuse. So, um, the trauma response. By the way, for people, I saw also Landra getting these comments. Um, People that went through such intense traumas, their emotional responses are not okay. It's a part of the trauma of the dissociation that they would suddenly laugh, and so it's incredibly weird. I know, but this is something that I do say because it's important for the people to listen to the testimonies of people. If you don't know how to there are just certain things that you need to know when you listen to testimonials. Is one of these things is that they would have this unusual laughter at, at the trauma or laughter in unreasonable situations because it is beyond it's inhumane. Okay, and they do that to create super people. They do that to create Superman. And so makes you question. And so um, as I discuss these things, a part of the programming, they try to program children to um, uh, be used for those peterings. And I guess why when I was, this is why in Israel, when I was connected to my inner child, that stirred up everyone. Because um, people had to deal with an aspect of them that they want to kill. It is an aspect that they are sexually and erotically attracted to that child because they want that innocence. Now, for the people who's like, um, there are people who are like, why do we need to get into these deep things that they should be killed and so on and so forth? Yeah, but you will not resolve the problem because those rituals will be done to more people. And and if we don't understand that this is done so that they can extort people that are in the best positions, it's your doctor, it's your judge, it's your social worker, it's your politician, it's your business person, and they can't talk about that, and in many cases there's dissociation, and it works on people that were also ritually abused. So I was at least aware to some level of significance. Then they would try to blame it on my parent. It's like, no, it didn't happen with the parent. It doesn't mean that parent that went also through things is not triggering sometimes, but when I talk about like those things, then that was not the parent. Because they want you to go into the people. For some people, those things were happening in the family, and they want you to go into the most that you will get to remember, or the most that you will get to understand is, I'm sorry, the sexual abuse at home. And you think about that, just like how is that the most? How's that? what's beyond that? And we don't want to. And that's the thing, we don't want to know. But this is what the ritual abuse is about: is to create these children that are used for that. And then if the child grows older, if they somehow survive, then now they become a politician, a business person, and extortable. And so when I was at the juncture, because I did care, I noticed and I did care to curate my inner child, to not become a parent until I curate my inner child, to not go and start relationships until I curate my inner child, and to work particularly on being in place where I have happy sexuality, sensuality, as a grown person. So that was completely antidote in extortion calls. For example, yesterday I was next to children. Mainly what I was feeling is happy, okay, not erotically aroused or anything like that. Um, Even with people that do not do offenses against the children, they, when they went through ritual abuse, they can feel all kinds of things, including, I'm sorry, sexual arousal around children. And it is important to understand there's nothing innocent about that, because, well, I mean, okay, it's nothing innocent about that in the sense that their inner child is innocent, but what they want is to destroy the innocence, because these are the rituals were around destroying the innocence. So this is why that is to begin with predatory. Okay, because when we curate our sexuality, we usually want to, basically, we reconnect with innocence. And this is why sexuality is another thing that is incredibly triggering, even as adult. And it's not only this, the ceremonies that they have around calling someone whore is also what I said. And um, yeah, so when they do these things for to harm inner child, to fracture inner child, they do this so that they can create more traumas in people and use that for extortion. Um, why do they do that? Well, it's connected with many things that funnel money, economic hitmanship, on various levels. It means that they want the scientists under their control. Okay, in my case, right before COVID, I was looking into the right things, because our intuition will always tell us to look for the right things, and that's the point of intuition. Um, and um, right before COVID, okay, so I understand now, today, right now, at this 3:58 a.m., August 28, 2025, I understand that a part of the mission was to get me, Shirley, the scientist, to be extortable, because I'm an adult person. But they would do the ritual on me, Shirley, the child, so that they will try to get me to talk about the science the way that they want. and there were also things to do with trafficking that okay, they wanted to see if there is still an essence in the child that could work with somebody else being extorted, whether politicians and so on, because department I was working was Department of Politics, and there were traffickers there of Epstein, I guess, and I think that the word Epstein, I don't know if it was Epstein, but it's kind of looked like that. And so, um, and the people that would do that would have all type of personalities that are programmed in them. They would use the good personality of the person in order to bait another person. But the good parts of the personality are also the parts that we don't want to kill because they are needed for the recovery. We don't want to deny, but the other parts, because the other parts are wounded. And you see later a person goes, and it would be in the junctures of recovery that people would meet for the abuse. Right now, for example, is yes, I'm sorry, it's the 28th. I live on welfare, okay, which they try to harm as well. I live, and people who would hear what, you know, I think in Spirit of Matter I was doing more science, but even a little bit with water expands upon cooling, and they were like, how come that person lives on welfare? It's like, because I do have some things intellectually to contribute, but it is again because of his is beyond the mockingbird. So even when you see what the mockingbirds, you understand what is these things, um, um, and yes, attempts to kidnap and so on and so forth. But I just associated to the 7th of October because I said, well, there was writing about peace. I was tending to, because in politics we would go to one voice and so on. So trying to see how we can have peace in a way that saves the national security interests. So I wanted to speak with people from the army that were generals or people that um, uh, um, and then and I wanted to make peace party because I said the students they need something to. Nobody wanted to. It's kind of like they made after murder of Rabin. Well, it's not about left or right even. It's just like somebody tries to even tend to make peace, murder, intifada, not letting that be. Okay. Um, there is to the Slavic person that does that is a part Ukrainian, a part Russian. Pay attention to what I say because you might be dealing with being targeted individual because of that. Okay, it's good to talk about peace. It's important to talk about peace, and yes, if somehow you're watching this, then it's good to talk about peace. It's important to talk about peace. Also, need to defend yourself when you talk about peace because there are forces that want to not have peace. Um, okay, it's all about money, essentially, and the way that and the way that they would create that supposed greed is also by abuse of children because they would think not only do they need to take money from or resources from others, okay, to create the hunger to resources, but also life energy. Okay, because they wouldn't have in it the ability to be happy in themselves naturally after such torture since infanthood, and that can create what people call soulless people and so on. No, they're not soulless. They went through intense abuse. Naturally, defend yourself from them perpetuating abuse, which is important. Okay, so we don't want to ideate either. You have to protect your life from people that went to such intense abuse, because all the things that they say about all the names that were given to them because of what they do, there's a reason for that. Okay, those are horrible things that they do, and so and and that's important. Okay. Um, Yes. Um, so this is about okay, but what happened? So you see that there were so many things in the background that I never connected it specifically to me, and definitely not to the science. And there were just many, many, many things around. And they also tend to the bloodline. The first thing was important for them that I would be in some kind of hospital situation so that they would take my blood tests. Okay, so if you have, particularly now, if you're talking about, peace and bringing people together and so on, then this might be important. Because by the blood type, they can see for what. And sometimes they can see for what the person does and say, oh, we did not know that this blood type can do that, and so on. Because these are ways to see what they can do with the person. They want your bloodline. Okay, but they want the wisdom of the bloodlines, but to use it for not good means. Um, by the way, thank you to Lai to explaining what is chosen people, because I didn't understand what it is. I was like, what is chosen? Not chosen people like the Jews chosen people. Chosen people, it means basically in every family lineage, there are people that have kind of, whether it's shamanic or rebellious, they're kind of like the person that understands the problems and know how to deal with them. Okay? And whether it's through, yes, ESP or whatnot, um, and the, and in each family, there is a person that is, because why are they chosen? It's not because they're better. It's because that's the person that is supposed to deal with that. So it's chosen in that sense. So now I understand what is the chosen people, because I was like, what is chosen people? so um, in that case, and the families usually are very angry at who is that chosen person, because they're jealous of the power that they supposedly get. Power is only potential. Power is not something that, how should I say that? If somebody abuses power, then they're not in power. Okay, a person is given power does not abuse power. It's not like we think of politics and something like that. Um, and so it will always anger families who is the person who's chosen, because it's a part of what the family needs to fix. Okay, it's because it's a part of the misconceptions and the challenges that the family needs to fix. And a lot of these children were targeted individuals, or were in Mormon cults or in Utah-like places. They were going through satanic ritual abuse because they wanted to get a hold of the lineage and the blessing supposedly in the lineage. Um, so, and they do that by creating intense ritual abusing people so that they believe that they need to take from others. Well, in fact, my prediction is that for those people, whether cloned or not only they are not soulless, but they are people that in higher susceptibility to be having those gifts, even if they weren't abused. Okay? The two gender sign that you see just looks like a peace sign. Shamanically, two gendered person was the person that would be dealing with everybody's problems. Okay, and it's in. We need to go all the way back to the training of the shamans and what went wrong there, because they were putting shamans in tremendous torture, and even in India, some children were expendable, and this can be origin to many of the practices that we don't like, all the way to the deep state. So yes, um, this one goes on YouTube. Um, yeah, this is something that I wanted to bring forth because I think it would be relevant to a lot of people. Some people are not even close to that and not really thinking about that. And as we speak, there is still this attempt to somebody to do that. And for them, it's they're in kind of like a trance state when they do that, which is it's beyond disturbing. It is beyond disturbing. Um, and also some of them learn, and some of them they learn to do with the sexual energy dark art, what people would call, I think they call it black tantra, but way worse. And but what they need to learn to do, let's say, more to do white tantra, okay, because with the same sexual energy they can manifest actually good things, and they also learn that, but they learn for to do both the white and black, and I guess, and because the white is used as a bait in these cults. Um, and But outside of the cult, I think there's something people call white hats, but I don't know if it's a part of M culture programming, um, where they do, when they would, if they would do that, they would do white tantra there. Um, White tantra is about, let's say, if somebody has an orgasm, then not an orgasm on a child. Which is important because a part of tantra is embodiment, and we actually don't come from sexual fantasies, but actually from sense of embodiment and opening of all the chakras, and sending the energy through there. So it's a different type of sexuality that used to be kind of like the wisdom of the people that are really in the elite and so on, but it's not actually not true. All people need to have access to those teachings, I believe, so that we can have sovereign society. It's just balancing of female and male energies, and it's kind of like having, but to access that after ritual abuse can be a lifelong journey, and it's about healing inner child, healing traumas, and when people do that, then there are attempts to keep them in a trauma cycle so that they will be extortable. And it's done by the people that are triggered by their recovery. And so um, this is something that to shed light on that um, is important, because essentially every person wants to be able to access their inner child and inner happiness, even if the child wasn't happy, to access in their inner child and be happy. Um, and those practices are taking them away from that. And then there is a desire, and I also think light here because she shed light on the topic. There is a desire for to kill the part of the self that was innocent, and this is how Falcon political assassination is created. I didn't think that this would also come up, but this is how political assassination is created. Also, assassination of targeted individuals and so on. Also, a lot of the harm, but this is the essence behind political assassination. And they want to create a ritual where people believe that the good is not possible.